Hey guys, today in this video we will be talking about types and declaration. Types of the C++, what involves what inside the C++ and the declarations alongside it. Now, my name is Bonsu and I'll be taking you through this video. Now let's begin. Now we have some objectives here. We just quickly brush through the objective and we should also know how you go about it in the video. Now, first is that we have the introduction to the C++ types. In our previous ones, we went about the introduction to the C++, but for this one, it's introduction to the C++ types. Now, the second is we learn the fundamental types, such as the boolean, the character types, the integer types, the floating point types, the void, and the sizes. Now, let's begin. Now, we continue with the introduction to the declarations. Then we learn the structure of declaration. The structure of declaration. Then declaring multiple names, names and the scope. And we'll be doing the initialization. Okay, now let's begin with the data types. Now, the data type refers to the various forms. Refers to the various forms of data that can be represented in a language. Refers to the various forms of data that can be presented in the language. Then we have an example include is the example include the integer, the float, the boolean, and etc. And let's move on to the categories of data types. Now here we have the integral types, that is the integer, the character, and the boolean. Then we have the integral and the floating point types, which are called the arithmetic types. Then we have the enumeration and the classes, which also are called the user defined type. Then we have the fundamental types, the pointers, and the reference, which are called the built-in types. All right. Let's move on to the data sets. Data set. This one, it specifies the range of range of values of data type, which are composed of. Specify the range of values a data type is composed of. Then in the data sets, each data type has its data set. Each data type has its own data set. Now let's move on. We have the integer, which we have the whole numbers. Now, that is the integer consists of whole numbers. That is the negative infinity to the positive infinity. Then we have the floating points. The floats, which involve the decimal numbers with single precision. So the float consists of the decimal numbers with single position. Then in the float point, we have another called the double, also a decimal numbers with double precision. Now we move to the next is the character, which consists of the letters, numbers, and symbols. Letters, numbers, and symbols. And we go to the boolean. It has only two statements, that is true or false. True or false. Then we have the string, which consists of the combination of characters. The combination of characters. Now let's move on to the data size. Data size. This one specifies the amount of memory. Now this one specifies the amount of memory a data is allocated in a data type. So for this one, it's specifies or give you the amount of memory a data is located or is seen inside a data type. And the second one is each data type has its own data size. Each data type has its own data size. We'll be looking at the data size. Uh, so don't worry. Then the third one is using the size of keyword. This one, the size of keyword for you. So using the size of keyword determine the size of the fundamental data type. So this size of keywords makes you determine the data size of the data type. Now let's move on to the data size of the data types. Now for the data type of integer, it uses 4 bytes. It uses 4 bytes. Then in the floating points, the float uses 4 bytes, also using 4 bytes. And in the floating point, the floating points, the double uses 8 bytes. Using 8 bytes. I don't know because it's called a double. That's why it's also it's 8 type, but then I don't think that would be the reason. But then we move to the character. Now the character uses 1 byte. Character uses 1 byte because only have one character. Then the boolean also uses 1 byte because it has only one two statement, true or false, so only 1 byte. Now the string uses 32 bytes. It uses 32 bytes because for the string is uses numerous variables and numbers and other characters. And let's move on to the integer types. The types that you can see, for example, the negative, then we have the positive. So, and in the integer type, the positive integers do not have a positive sign in front of them. Yeah, they do not have positive sign in front of them. It's like simply in mathematics, you see when a number don't have a positive sign in front of them, it means, or we understand that there's already a plus sign in front of them, so there's no need. Then we continue. It has no comments. No comments are used within an integer. Yes, this one, no comments are used within an integer. And the comments are used for separating items in a list. For the integer types, the comments are used for separating items in a list. And now look at an example of the integer. Now you can see our hashtag include the ID string. Then we have the username std. Now we have the function called the int main. Then now curly braces we put our integer type, that's the int, then the variable. Then so we have our number there. So int x equals to 25. Then you you initialize it. Yes. Cool. Let's move to. So I'll show an example over here. Mm. So please give me a moment. Oh, sorry. Oh, right. Now yeah. So we have our int, int then x then equals to because now our value that's terminate it. Yes, I can see. Now we can move to our now let's continue to the floating point types. Now this one represents the floating point numbers. It represents the floating point numbers. Then it has three types. It has three types. Have the float, which is the single position. Then we have double. Double is double position. Then we have long double, which is the extended position. The extended position. Now let's move on. Now we have an example over here. We have hashtag includes our basic format here. Then we put our float amount, our data type, then the variable equals to the value, then the termination. So go to our ID. So for this one, so float, say amount goes to our our, our value, then terminate. Move on. Let's move this one. Let it response. Let's move on. We are going to our double type. Double type. Also have our user format. That is, then we have the data type, our variable, like the salary. We have our value. Host double has sorry, the data type the data type of double has decimals inside. So and for this one, the double data type can consist of many you know can consist of many decimals inside it. Uh, okay, now let's move to our IDs where I will show the example. Now we move on to double. Then we have this variable salary. and equals to the you can put any value there. It's not that you follow the same example as I'll be doing. So it's like I said, just said, it's an example. So there's no need to therefore to that is. So let's move on. We go to our bowling type, our bowling data type. Now the bowling is a now the bowling is used to express the result of logical operations. It's used to express the result of logical expressions. Now it is also known as bool, and it uses two values. That is the true and false. Now the true represent one or yes. When you're coding, the true stand for one or yes, and the false is zero or no. Zero, zero or no. Now let's see an example over here. So just format, then we put in the blue. This one, our variable is our logic variable is raining. So it equals to, is it true or is it false? Depending on the environment that you are in. So if you look around you, is it raining? If yes, then you put true. If no, then you put false there. So I'll show you how do you see the bull. Then we have is raining. Then you put true. Sorry, forgot it a bit. Yes. Or if no, then you can put false. That's what true. Sorry. Let's move on to the character types. Now the character has the smallest integral data type. It has the smallest integral data type, and the character is enclosed in a single quote. Yes, it's enclosed in a single quote. Then some of the values belonging to character data types are, some examples. So all of them are, inside a single quote. So without a single quote, when you're running or executing the program in the now ID, it won't work. They give you an error because for character types, it uses single quotes, because some of them be also using other quotes. So that's why if you don't bring the single quotes inside the character, you will be getting an error. Now, eh, the character type, let me show you an example. So we have a character, uh, uh, it's represented by for shorten it. Then we have maybe gender, your gender. uh, We have maybe you're a boy or a girl, so single quote, boy for B. Then we will terminate something like that. Now we move on to now for this one. It says a blank space is a character and it's written, you know, without any words. So a single quote without any words, with a space left between the single quotes. You see the example here? Yes. Look, there's a single quote, but nothing is inside. Yes. Now let's move on. So the example like I gave it to you. You see, over here, the character, then we have the gender, the, so the boy. Okay, let me change it again to M. Because I remember, yes, it's something like that. Then we move on to string types. What is string type? Um, we have one. The programmer defined type. The programmer defined type supplied in the standard library. The string type. The program defined type supplied in the standard library. Then you have the sequence of zero or more characters. So for the sequence of zero or more characters, then we have the enclosed in double quotation. You see, as I said, yeah, let me go back. So for this one, the character has single quotation, but for the string, we have double quotation. That's what I said. If you don't bring each and every one position or precise mark, the system will define it as error. So for the string, it has a double quotation mark. Then we have the null, a string with no characters. The null is a string with no characters. Now each character has relative position in string or in the string. So that each character has a relative position in the string type. Now let's look at the example. Now if we come to the function inside, we put the data type, like the string, the variable, that's the name. Then we have the value, that's the name here. So I will give you an example of it in our ID. So if we put in sorry, no C plus plus is no uh, uh, capital sensitive. So string string, then we have name equals to put quotation. Quotation. You have your name. You have put and for that. Let's use for the yeah. Terminate. Let's move on. We move on to void. That's a void. Now the void signifies the absence of information. So the voice just signifies the absence of the information. Now you tap inside you the ID. Now is now it's a synthetically a fundamental data type. Yeah, no surprise there. Now the void can be used only as part of a more complicated type. The void can be used only as part of a more complicated type. Then it's mostly used in functions. It's mostly used in functions. Now let's move on. Here's an example of the void. The void you have the void here and the variable here. Yes. So it simply makes those variables absent from the information. So it doesn't want the users to see, if you don't want the users to see what you have written, that one you use the void. Okay, now let's move on to the signed and the unsigned. The signed and the unsigned. I say both are type modifiers. uh, Both are type modifiers. Then we have then they are signed as both positive and negative values. Both of them are signed as positive and negative values. And the unsigned only represents non-negative values. The unsigned only present non-negative values. That is the zeros to the positive values. Okay, let's move on to the example. So we have signed here, signed, then we have our data type, then the variable, then we have the value, then the termination. So let's go to our ID now. So we have the signed, sorry, sensitive capital. So signed. So then we have our data type, then our variable, then let me change this to y. Then we have we have our values. Any value that you can put in, value you can put in. So that's an example. Then you terminate. That's all. Now let's move on. Let's move on to the unsigned. The unsigned. You can see the unsigned. Then we have your data type. Then we have your variable. Then we have your values over here. So we go to have the unsigned. Assign then your data type. Have your values. So this one you can initialize it all the way. can initialize it all the way, or you can declare it first, then you put in the values, declare it, then before you initialize it. All right. Mm. Let's move on to other fundamental types. So we have short, we have long, and we have long long. So the short consists of 2 bytes, the long consists of 4 bytes, and the long consists of 8 bytes. No surprise there. I will go to the composite types. Now, and we have the pointers. We'll talk about in our next videos. Then we have the arrays. Then we have the reference types. No surprise there. Now let's continue. Now we have the user-defined types. User-defined types. We have the data structures and the classes. Data structures and the classes. Then we have the enumeration, which represent a specific set of values. We'll also be talking about it in our next videos. So no surprise there. Then we move to declaring multiple names. Declaring multiple names. And this one, it is used to declare several names in a single declaration. Used to declare several names in a single declaration. Then the, the declaration uses comma for separation. It uses comma for separation. And it is mostly done for similar data types. It's similarly done for similar data types. Now let's go to an example. Then yeah, we have your format. They include the hashtag, include the iStream username std. Then we have your function int main, and inside the int main we have our variable, our data type, then our variable. Now we are come to declare the multiple names. So and this thing that you see here are called a complement. But we get, you know what I was talking about very soon. So we have our data types. So int equals to z. Then we declare it. Then move to print, which is you. Declare it. Then we are going to declare the multiple names. Then we have the int. So we have z. Then we use the comma to separate it. We have the u. Then you declare it. Sorry. Then you declare it. What is that? Now you complement it. You can see you have declared, or you have declared a multiple names. Okay, now let's move on to scope. Scope. Now we have local scope. Now there are different types of scopes. Now we have local scopes, we have global scope, we have the class scope, we have the namespace scope, and we have the statement scope. So let me look at that. Sorry, just look at an example. We have our hashtag include, then we have your iStream, then we have the username std, then we have the data type, that is the int, the variable, that is the student age. Now there is the school, This could complement the global scope. Then we have our function interim. When the inside we have our data type, that is the age. I mean the integer. Then our variable is the age. Then we declare it. Then we put our scope over there to show the difference between the one that's outside the function, the one that's inside the function. So for the global, we'll have to identify that the data type is outside the function. And the local, actually you find that the data type is inside the function, right? So now let's try our house on it. Now we start for the data type, so we'll go outside the function. This one. So we put in our data type, that's the int. Then where it from? Check this one. Go down and check the same one. Go down. Put our variable down there, the student age. You declare it. Move on. You this boy I swear to God. Now you for come here. Now you for come here. You. Are you critical thinking zone? Concern so. Complement it. How is this a bad argument? You know bad arguments. How is this a bad argument? A moment. How about global scope? That is the data type is out of the function. Then we put in our local scope. That is the we put our then how maybe our students. Then we indicate it as our local scope. Yeah. So this one is basically to make you know that basically know that this locus scope is within this data type is within the function. Then we have this one is also outside the function. Okay, now let's continue. So we move into the declaration. This one, this one. So in this one, the declaration, the identifier must be identifier. The name must be declared before being used in C++ program. It must be declared before using in C++ program, and it informs the compiler what kind of entity the identifier refers to. So it informs the compiler what kind of entity the identifier refers to. Now, here's an example of it. So we have the character, the ch, now the string is s, then the int, the integer count equals. Then you have the constant double, that the pi equals to. Yeah. Now let's move on to the example. So the string, then we have the counter. Let's move on to the initialization. The initialization determines the initial value of an object. This one determines the initial value of that object. Then it can be used to modify the value of. It can be used to modify the value of. Now we have an example here. The initializer can use one of the four synthetic styles. So we have it here, one of the four synthetic styles. So I'll be using the third one. Yeah. Let's move on to the example. That'll be for our last video. So we have our data type, that is the int, then the variable is the age equals to the value. So we get 25. Then is it? No, not me. I add the count. Yeah. Okay, now we have now go to our ID. Put our example over here. So now we are trying to initialize it. We're trying to initialize. So our int, put our int, then variable, that's the age. Then equals to the number 46. Then we take it. Then our character, it's gender. Yes. Then equals to no. have our there we go. This how to initialize. Sorry, I think I made a wrong error here. Okay, initialize it. Thank you. And that's all for today. I hope you got understanding of what we just did here. And I'll be explaining more on our next videos. So stay tuned and don't miss the class. Thank you.